we all know now that's changing very, very rapidly. So it's hard to define who seniors are really at this moment in time. I guess what's more important is how many people in the community need assistance or need to be taken care of by their local community or by those around them. I mean, we have nearly 3 million carers in Australia. That's somebody who's caring for somebody in some capacity. And 700 and more thousand of those are primary carers, and that means they're devoting a huge amount of their time and resources just to looking after somebody, usually somebody that they love.
So 700,000 full-time carers, essentially. That's really
effectively. I mean, the stats in Queensland tell us that there are 500,000 people registered carers.
Mm.
Now, that's a huge proportion of people taking care of somebody.
Mm.
And giving all of their time up to do just that.
I was going to say, it's a full-time job.
It is a full-time job, and highly unrewarded in so many regards.
It is. I was staggered by the statistic the other day. As I was saying to you some time ago, I went to a superannuation talk, and it was talking about the number of taxpayers at the moment supporting the number of people over 65 in our population. And it's something like 7 taxpayers for every person over 65. But in 2050, and we're not that far away from that, are we? 36 years away from that.
That's our children and
that's
our
grandchildren. Children and grandchildren.
Yeah.
There will only be 3 taxpayers for every person over 65.
The whole question of how we're going to fund retirement in that time is dramatic. I mean, right now we need $500,000 or $1 million in a super fund just to try and get by, and most people aren't doing that. And we need to be talking to our young people about putting money away into their super fund. It's easy to say, but it's very hard to do when you have a young family. I know that.
Sure, which draws the question, I suppose. It makes sense to have as many people as independent as possible once they do reach the frailty of older age. And I won't say old age, but the frailty of older age.
Yeah, for sure. That's what got me thinking about what do we need to solve some of the problems that people are facing. I know as I get older, I want to stay in my own home. That's fundamental in my being. I've always had my own home. I've always been able to take care of myself, and it's going to take a lot to shift me from that way of thinking. So I set out to think, well, what do people need to try and stay in their own home, and most of all, be safe? And I put together a series of questions that asked, what do we need? What do we need to make sure that if something untowards happens, then we can guarantee help will arrive? And that's when Seniors Wellbeing was set up, and I started to develop the solutions that allowed us to do that.
Mm-hmm. And you're talking about practical solutions, aren't you? You're not talking about philosophical solutions.
No, very much so.
I mean, it is based on a philosophy of maintaining independence and improving well-being, in fact, not just maintaining well-being.
I wanted to know that if somebody I loved fell down or collapsed or went unconscious, then help would be guaranteed to arrive quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And I've worked in many industries, including the security industry, and I realized that for 30 years we've been relying on pendants. And we give our loved ones a pendant and say, if anything happens, press this button. Well, it doesn't work all the time. They forget to wear it. They won't wear it. When they do fall, they forget to press it. And this leads to really serious consequences. I mean, we have a huge number of falls and a huge number of hip fractures and such like. But it's surprising to know that 1 in 3 people over the age of 65 will fall at least once a year. Now, if they don't get up off the floor, if they can't get up off the floor, the consequences can be dire. Not just in fact they might have an injury, but the fear that's now instilled in them to go and get a drink of water, to make a cup of tea, they become reluctant to become active. And that's what I wanted to stop. I wanted to make sure people are home safe and sound.
Which comes down to your brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
Well, we developed a small desktop device that plugs into your phone line, and we called it Fall Buddy, because it's a buddy that's supposed to look after you. And what it really does, it learns your normal routines and activities, so that if you get up at 7:30 and if you go into the shower at 8 o'clock, if you don't come out of the shower by 8:30, say, then it's going to phone somebody and automatically call for help. You don't have to press anything. You don't have to do anything. It just knows you should be here. You should be in the kitchen by now. And if you're not, it makes a phone call. It really is as simple as that.
How does it know?
Because it learns that you normally have a shower somewhere between 8 and 9. And between 8 and 9, we ask Fullbody to look out for you every 15 minutes or every 30 minutes. It depends on how long you want to be in there. But if at the end of that period of time you don't come out, it simply asks you, where are you? Are you okay? I'm a bit worried about you. And if you can't let it know that you're okay, then it just phones your next door neighbour, it phones a family member, or it phones a friend and said, can you come and make sure that Mum's okay, because I haven't seen her for a little while.
So this is basically via the installation of a couple of motion sensors inside a dwelling.
That's right. It has a sensor that sees you going into the bathroom, and it needs to see you coming out. It's simple as that. It sees you in the lounge, or it sees you in your computer room, or in your garage working in the shed. And if you go into that place and don't return within a period of time, it calls for help. So, for example, if it sees you popping out to the garden at 11:30 to hang the washing out, if you don't come back by 12 o'clock, it's going to say, where are you? You should be back here and now. I'm worried about you.
Because it has learned that that's what you do.
It learned, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And do you program it, or does it learn by itself?
No, we don't. We tell it what you're going to do. So we set up the parameters, and we can learn the parameters that you do. Say, for example, somebody has dementia and we can't understand what their normally routines would be. We capture and store all the activities the person makes, and then we can use that information to create a table ideally suited for that person.
And this is all programmed into this tiny little unit, really. I mean, in terms of what it does, it's a very small unit. It's less than a phone size, isn't it?
I call it a smart telephone. But it does more than that, Paul, because it'll actually remind you up to 6 times a day that it's time to take your tablets. It'll phone your family member or friend to say, I'm worried about Mum's house. It's a bit cold, or it's a bit too hot.
So it senses temperature.
Yeah.
Wow.
We decided to put that in there as well. What we did is we asked a series of questions about what it is that puts somebody's safety in jeopardy. And we try to deal with that issue in some way in this small telephone device. It doesn't need the internet. It's not a computer. It doesn't spy on anybody at all. It just literally looks after you. And if you fall at 4:30 in the afternoon, by 5 o'clock or by 5:30, it'll call somebody and get help for you. It's really as simple as that.
So what's the difference between the systems currently on the market, which are these pendants that people seem to be assured by, where they hang them around their neck and then walk around with them, comparing that with your Fullbody system?
Well, we designed the Fullbody to have a pendant, so it has a pendant. But the reason we went to these extreme lengths is because we know the pendant system has a very bad failure rate. It fails 75% of the time.
75% of the time. So it's only effective 25% of the time.
Exactly so.
Right.
And there's no other industry in the world that would have that kind of tolerance, especially when people's lives are at stake.
You wouldn't accept that from your car, would you?
No, you wouldn't. You would. But the reason it fails is because half the times people who have pendant systems fall, they don't have the pendant with them at the time. They've left it on the bedside cabinet. They've left it on the kitchen bench or at the sink when they go in the shower, which is the dangerous time.
I guess the pendant is an intrusion in a way. People are probably pretty reluctant to accept that intrusion.
I have to say, if somebody said to me I had to wear a pendant, I'd feel it as though it was a badge saying I'm not able to take care of myself anymore.
Okay.
So there is a reluctance to take it up.
So as opposed to Fullbody, which is a passive system, you don't really have to know that it's there.
No. As long as you're moving around the house and being healthy and well, it doesn't do anything at all. It's only when it sees you not moving that it calls for help.
So what did you say? One in 3 people fall over. What was the statistic about falling?
There's 3.3 million people over the age of 65 here in Australia. 1.1 million of those are living on their own. And strangely enough, there's 1.1 million falls in Australia every year.
Well, I have to say, I was talking to my next door neighbour the other day about this because I knew that you were coming in to talk about it. And his father's death was an exact, I suppose, a pure illustration of the value of this system insofar as that the poor old man fell down. He was my neighbour obviously is here, but his father lived in Perth in Western Australia, and his father fell down couldn't reach the phone and just call any of his family, one of which was local, but one of which was, of course, my neighbour on the Sunshine Coast. And as my neighbour said to me, he said, if he'd only just been able to make the phone call, we could have arranged, I could have arranged to call people and to help him out. The fact of the matter is that the poor old man couldn't get to the phone and he expired.
Yeah.
And my neighbour said to me, if only he'd been able to make contact with me. But of course, Full Body does this for him.
It does it automatically. So even if you don't have a pendant, and we do supply a pendant, but if you don't have it, it doesn't matter. If you have dementia, a pendant's no good to somebody with dementia because they won't know how to use the button. It doesn't matter. Full Body will call automatically. I guess, Paul, that something probably worth telling your listeners is I discovered when I was 22, I went home to see my mum, and she'd fallen on the kitchen floor. And unfortunately, I was too late to save her. And from that day, I always knew there needed to be something that allowed help to be called automatically, because so many people's lives can be improved. It isn't simply a question of help being called. It's also a question of knowing that if something happens, it'll come quickly.
And of course, you've taken quite a long while to develop this, but is it available now in the marketplace?
Yeah, we're manufacturing them in Brisbane, in Queensland. So everything about the product is Australian. It's developed here. It's patented here. It's ready to go. We're distributing now from our warehouse in Brisbane itself. I live in Karoi, and I'm struggling as to know where I want to be because I just love being up here in the Sunshine Coast.
Sure.
But it's ready to go. It's ready to go.
And essentially, what you're doing is you're giving peace of mind, not so much to the person involved, but also the carers that have the responsibility for the people who are affected by. It doesn't matter whether it's Parkinson's or dementia or any of the other ills of frailty that seniors tend to start to accumulate as time goes on. And what you're really doing is giving them the assurance of a lifestyle and, more importantly, independence from a dependent lifestyle.
Yeah. Carers Queensland have told us that this is the first device that they've seen that they feel as though a carer who's looking after somebody with high care needs can actually go to the shops or could even return to work at some level and know that if something happened, they'd get a phone call straight away. Now, that's great for us. And it's also great for Australia because we want to take this product overseas. We want to take it international. We've got big plans for what we can do with this and the number of lives that we think it can change.
It's quite a remarkable entrepreneurial story, actually. But I suppose, good luck doesn't happen. It's been taking you a long time to develop this.
We've worked at this. We've been working at it now for 4.5 years. I had the original idea 10 or 15, 20 years ago. And at that time, I was a little bit of a gadget freak. And I started cutting the pipes in the house because what I wanted to be able to determine is if mum gets out of bed and flushes the toilet or makes a cup of tea in the morning or pours a glass of water at lunchtime, then at least I know she's okay. Well, that's just the nerdy part of me that thought this might be a solution. But of course, now we have wireless technology. So we literally put the sensors up with Velcro on the wall. They're easy to install. You can take them on holiday with you if you want to. It really is a portable and a self-sustaining device.
And the unit makes phone calls depending on the situation to any number of people that have been programmed into the device.
Yeah, it'll phone up to 6 different people. So it'll phone your next door neighbour. It'll phone your friend down the road. It'll phone your granddaughter. It'll phone your family members. It'll phone whoever you choose it to phone, and it'll say to them, "This is Mum's Full Body, and we're worried about her. Could you just make sure that she's okay?" And that's simple as that. And they press the hash button on their phone to say, "We're definitely coming." Or if it goes to an answering bank, it goes to a next number because it knows it hasn't got to a human being. It's as smart as that.
So the big question is, how much does it cost?
We're selling it for $1,495.
$1,499.
Which is a lot of money. I'm trying to find a lending institution that will allow me to sell it like I would a mobile phone, where I can charge $15 a week and that's all of it. There's no other costs involved. There's no ongoing maintenance fees. There's no cost to go to a call centre. So those costs don't apply.
So that's a very important difference, isn't it? The current token systems, or what do you call them, the
dependent
systems, actually have a subscription fee, don't they?
They all have a subscription fee, and the pensioners have told us that they loathe paying their small pension to these devices because they don't feel they need the device. It's other people who should have devices, but people don't feel it's them because they've been independent all of their lives. They've been in the war. They've been running bigger businesses in their lifetimes, and now they've been told to be treated like children, and they don't like it. So that we feel full buddies should be supported by the family. The family should come in and say, here's something from mum or dad, and just look after them, and then that's the end of it. Nothing else to consider. You take it away with you. You go on holiday with you. It's yours. You own it, just like you would a mobile phone.
So it's a one-off cost, and then it's done.
Cost, yeah.
Sounds like a pretty good investment for the family, in my interpretation of it. So how does someone talk to you? How does someone obtain a system, a full buddy system?
Well, you can call us on our 1300 number, which is 1300 60, number 60, number 2, 100, 60 to 100.
So that's 1300 602 100.
That's it, yeah.
We'll actually make a note of that here at the station, just in case we get calls here at the station as well. But
and you'll find us on seniorswellbeing.com.au or fullbuddy.com.
Well, I think it's a brilliant system. I know that it's received rave reviews from caring associations and professional associations. And I just hope that as an entrepreneur you're rewarded for this, because it's just an amazing thought and idea, and more importantly that that it has such incredible benefit to the community, which is in increasing need of it.
Well, I think that more and more of us are heading towards retirement, and more of us are going to need something like this to help us get through.
All right, Mr. Barry Sheridan, Seniors Wellbeing. Thanks, Barry, for coming in.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Hopefully you'll get some reward for it all.
Thank you very much.